This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 182 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. We are, I was going to say mid-corona times. We are early corona times. And although we might not be getting out there and traveling, it has been decided that the podcast should go on. I held a vote in the Thoughtful Travelers Facebook group this week. And so far, 90% or thereabouts of respondents have said, yes, we want to hear the Thoughtful Travel Podcast weekly, please. And the other 10% said, oh, you could go fortnightly. That's okay. Nobody said stop. So I am back. And not going anywhere. I think it's still, really valuable and enjoyable to think back on past travels and to daydream about future travels. So we are still here. Now, today's episode is one of my kind of favorite travel topics. It's about travel and personal development. So all about kind of the ways that travel can change you. And certainly travel has changed a lot about me. I sometimes wish I could have like a sliding doors life, and there could be an Amanda who hadn't travelled and then me, Amanda, who has travelled, and see what the differences really were. Because I really feel that a lot of my travel experiences have completely altered my personality over the years. And without all of these travel experiences, I think I'd be really different. I think I'd have, in some ways, like a different personality, definitely different values. It would be just really interesting to see, but I don't have that kind of magic. So you'll just have to put up with me as I am. But in any case, in today's episode, I chat with 3 different guests who have all had these kinds of experiences where they, feel themselves being changed by travel, or their traveling companions being changed by travel as well. And so I've got 3 stories all about kind of, the different ways that travel can change how your life pans out and how you act in your life. My first guest today is Kiki Wong, and we start talking about back in the days when she was a pre-med student and then had to make some choices that were definitely travel related.
I started out in college as a pre-med student, so I'm Korean and Chinese, half Korean, half Chinese and American. And my parents had a vision for me to be a very good doctor or lawyer, but mostly doctor. So I was a pre-med student and very studious and stuck to it. But at the time, I actually found music interesting. I used to always play music, and I was casted for a modeling thing. I just did modeling on the side just to make a little extra cash. And it just so happened to be a casting for a jewelry company. So I did the jewelry shoot and everything. And then they also saw that I played guitar. So they're like, hey, you want to join this band? And I thought, okay, sure, let's join the band. Why not? I thought it was going to be like a garage thing, where you're like playing in the garage and having fun. It ended up being a pretty big deal. And after I graduated, I ended up getting my degree, and I started working full-time at the hospital at UCLA Med Center with stroke, Alzheimer's, and dementia patients.
Right. Wow.
And then, so I did that for a good amount of time, about a year and a half. And then at that moment, we got offered an opportunity to perform in China. So it was a pretty big situation, but the problem was I told my boss, and my boss was like, that's great, but you basically could choose either to go on that tour or quit your job.
Wow. That's a tough choice.
It was pretty gnarly. It was very gnarly. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go and quit my job today. So I quit my job on the spot.
Good
and I was ready to go on this tour.
I love that.
And the tour got canceled, actually.
Oh, no.
It was pretty devastating.
Oh, dear.
So I had to pick up odd jobs here and there. And, I've had all kinds of strange jobs, from like bartending to like events planning and all types of things. But what happened was I started touring with the band, and we toured all over the world, eventually made our way to Macau, Hong Kong, Malaysia, South America. And we basically discovered our love for travel through touring in a band. So
wow.
I think it was a real drastic time. And I think especially with Asian American parents, they were really disappointed at me. There's points they didn't want to speak to me for a long time.
Wow.
But we were able to come through, have some success. And I even had an opportunity to play on stage with Taylor Swift and Usher. And, so yeah, it was cool. And I was on the VMAs, Video Music Awards for MTV in 2014 on drums for Taylor Swift. So,
oh wow, that's awesome.
I think, so it was well worth it. And I think taking that risk and being able to do something, that I didn't even think I could afford. I didn't think I could afford to go out there in a band and travel the world. I didn't have any money. But I think just allowing yourself to be open to the opportunities and be willing to put in the legwork and be willing to put yourself out there, it allows you to live your life and kind of experience things that you never knew you were capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Back when you had that pivotal moment when you quit your job, hoping to go on tour to China, was it? What do you think gave you the kind of the strength to do that? Was it that you felt that you wanted to get out there and see the world, or was it more the pull to music, or did you not want to become a doctor? What was the kind of the key thing there?
It was definitely a confusing moment, but there has always kind of been this drive for me to travel. I grew up in a pretty small town. There's 12,000 people in the town. It's not like incredibly small, but it was small enough to be, there was farms and stuff around where I lived, and it wasn't, people had horses, and it was just a common thing. Out here in LA, it's like, what horses? I've never even seen one.
Yeah, I know them from TV.
Right, exactly. So, exploring was something that I'd always wanted to be a part of. I've always wanted to see what was beyond just, the realm of my small town. So having that opportunity to travel, play music and see the world was like golden. It trumped everything else. It trumped rationale, essentially, because I was a little bit broke. But it was well worth it, I think.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing much better to broaden your kind of worldview and horizons and open up all the possibilities for the future than getting out there and really seeing the world.
Right.
Wow. Good on you. That was a pretty brave choice to make, but obviously it was the right one.
Thank you.
And your parents they've got over the fact that you're not a doctor?
They are.
Maybe not.
I hope to say they are. They are proud. After, it took a decent amount of years to start getting a little bit of notoriety and sort of win back my parents' trust. But, after, we really started pushing for travel writing and working and building our career in travel, they started to understand that, it's not just a pipe dream, that there can be a career and something really successful out of it. So they still would like to be like, well, you could go back to college, but
it's never too late. So clearly Kiki's path in life was changed utterly, both by her desire to travel and the fact that she did travel. And I have no doubt that played into a lot of kind of personal development changes as well. Also, my lesson to take from that is travel, even if your parents don't approve. Sorry, parents. But I will definitely approve of any or all travel my son decides to do later. I will miss him badly when he takes off around the world. Especially if he stays away for years like I did, but I will be unsurprised because, that's the kind of example I've set. So it's okay. Speaking of parents and families and children, my next guest is Nicci O'Mara, and she tells us about a situation when she went on a trip to Europe with her husband and 2 kids, and some personal development that happened for all of them as a part of this very exciting trip.
In my mind, travel brings together families through the good and the bad experiences of travel. And I think family is such an important part of the travel experience. And the reason I say this, when we went to Italy 3 years ago, it was a really big turning point in our family relationships and also in the personal development of myself, my husband, and my 2 boys, who at the time were 6 and 8. I had at the time built up this picture in my mind of, so we're going to travel for 5 weeks through Italy. We're doing it all ourselves, Italy and then Denmark. Mm-hmm. And I built up this picture of we were going to arrive in Rome just in time for my birthday. And I'd thought, well, we'll have a couple of days to get over jet lag, then it's my birthday. So I'd worked it all out, thought I had a brilliant plan. And then, of course, forgetting the fact that the week before we left, we were moving house.
Oh gosh.
My husband was actually away that week as well. So I moved house with 2 little boys by myself.
Wow.
Because we're about to start renovations in our house while we're away. So, I mean, there was just so many things happening there. But from the travel point of view, we got there, we got on the plane. I think the first thing I did was have a Singapore sling the moment I got on that plane, just to
don't blame you one bit, yes.
So my recommendation is never, ever move house just before you travel overseas for a long period.
I'll take note of that. It seems very sensible advice.
Yes. But I think I had this picture in my mind, and it got to my birthday, of course, and we all had, exhaustion for one, but jet lag as well, and these 2 little kids who were exhausted. And, of course, it's always going to go badly. So there was a meltdown. There was a major meltdown. So there was tears, I think, from me, from the 2 kids.
Oh, dear me.
But it was such an amazing, I mean, it was an experience that I'll never forget in terms of my expectations obviously were totally wrong, just because I'd built it up because it was my birthday and I'd been there before and, I wanted it to be so special. Anyway, the kids were the most hideous, revolting things in the entire world that day when I woke up. Sorry, when they woke me up, I think at 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, gosh. Oh, no. Oh.
So as you can imagine, we didn't get to go that day to have lunch or a beautiful dinner or anything like that. So after everything had settled down, it was actually probably really good because I think I was sobbing really big tears. I think that was sort of, that was the ledge that I just sort of fell over.
Oh, you poor thing.
And for the boys, it was really good because they sort of looked at me because they don't ever you very rarely see your mother, break down. And they looked at me and went, wow, it's not actually all, it's not about us kids all the time. And maybe we could do something that would help. And it really turned things around, I think, in a lot of ways of, because I don't want, haven't brought my kids up to, think that they're privileged, and I mean they certainly are, but I want them to have the most amazing understanding and be kind and compassionate and which I think they are. But it was so lovely. So things then, within an hour turned around and we went, okay, you know what? We'll postpone it until tomorrow. And that was their idea. They said, let's postpone it. You can have your birthday tomorrow, Mum, because let's not try today.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So it was so lovely. And look, the next day we got up, we had the most beautiful day. I think I actually went shopping for a few hours by myself, which I totally say that everyone should do if you can do it. It doesn't have to be shopping. It can be a walk or, anything along those lines. I really feel if you're traveling with a family or with a partner that if you can get out and do something by yourself, then that's fantastic. But I mean, we then had the most unexpected time we had dinner near the Pantheon, and there was the most amazing sort of jazz band playing right in front of us. And it's something that we'll never, ever forget because they probably wouldn't have been there the day before.
So true.
It actually was my birthday. And it just made it all that much more special. And we learnt a lot about ourselves and each other. And that trip, the boys went on to really help, because they weren't too keen in the beginning to help do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And after that, I mean, they were very young, admittedly, but after that, I think they learned a really valuable lesson, and they remember this like nothing else. I think every time it's my birthday, they go, "Oh, remember that time we wrecked Mum's birthday?"
Oh.
But it's okay. The next one was really good.
Oh, that's so fabulous. What a turning point, because that kind of age is such an age for kids where they're kind of transitioning from being just little kids into, kind of mini adults, where they can, make a contribution and understand that adults also have good and bad days and things like that. And to have it happen in such a special location like that, wow, I think that's fabulous.
It was it was a special location and everything else. But look, if it had happened at home, I think when you travel, you are literally all together on top of, well, not on top of each other, but you're there through the thick and thin of it. And that's what I do love so much, because it builds our relationships in such a big way. And that's a big part of why I want to travel, because I know the kids aren't going to be with us forever.
Yes, exactly.
So having one going into high school next year, which is absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
I just go, wow, I really only have a few more years of him at home where I can say, okay, come on, let's go here, and of that really true bonding time of going away together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've really got to make the most of it. That's so true. Nicci made me laugh when she talks about the boys saying, "Remember that time we wrecked Mum's birthday?" That's one of my favourite things in ages. Sorry, Nicci, poor Nicci. But it's true. Those kind of moments really impact our personal development, I think, and change the way we act in the long term. And definitely travelling with people builds relationships, definitely in a totally different way to when you're at home in real life, all going off to do your own things. Also, actually, being at home in Corona times is a little bit like being thrown together all the time, like when you're travelling. So maybe Corona times are more similar to travel than we thought. Anyway, moving on to my final guest today, which is Nate Taiaroa. And Nate does a lot of travel and has spent a lot of time living and traveling and taking groups of people to Africa. And a lot of his experiences there in particular have really led to a lot of personal development, and for Nate to think about how to help others also have that, interesting and useful self-development.
For me, travel is one of the best ways to get to know myself. And I think the reason for that is in everyday life, we're so busy working, running around, doing washing, doing shopping, playing sport, the million things that we try and ram into our lives. Whereas often when you're traveling, and particularly the way I like to travel, I'm out hiking, and so you've got 8 hours to just think. And I think the beauty of that is you give yourself time to think about those things that you'd otherwise push to the bottom of the list. And particularly from the time I spent living in Tanzania, I really I became aware of what was really important to me, what were the things I would compromise on and what were the things I wouldn't compromise on. And what I've loved out of that, and I suppose this also comes with a little bit of maturity of growing up a little bit, is I've come back from Tanzania when I moved back to Australia, and I basically got rid of a lot of friends that weren't adding a lot of value to my life, and my friend group in particular now rocks. Like, I've got the greatest friends. They challenge me, they support me, and not that I had bad friends before. It was just that they didn't push me to the next level.
Right.
And that was one of the things I figured out that was really important to me, is I wanted someone that could have honest conversations with me, who love doing things and things that I like doing and making a difference and all that kind of stuff. And I think travel is what helped me become aware of that.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
And everyone's journey will be different. Like, I wouldn't say go overseas and try and find something the same as what I've found. Overseas and, you know, find experiences that work for you and find experiences that allow you to grow. I think one of the things I really love about travel is it really challenges your perception of the world and pushes your boundaries. So one of my favorite experiences to take someone on is Kibera slum in East Africa. So it's in Nairobi. Think of the suburb that you live in Australia, size of that suburb, and then 1 million people into it. That's what Kibera looks like.
Wow.
And for most people thinking about this, the thing that pops to mind is poverty, crime. It's going to be miserable. Why would I ever want to go there? You know, these types of thought processes. And a lot of those things are factually correct. However, what I love about taking people through the slum is when you properly immerse into that type of community, you learn so much more. You learn that in those types of communities, family means something. Community means something. It's all about love. They've got incredible resilience. So all these types of things that we often lack in developed countries, they have them. And so to actually go in and meet some of the people that live there, spend time with them, cook a meal with them, you know, swap stories with them, that's the way you actually really learn who they are and what they're facing. And I think out of that, you start to understand them a little bit and you start to realize that when you break it all down, humans are all the same. We have the same basic needs.
Yeah.
It's just that I got lucky and won the lottery and was born in Australia, and that person was born in the slum.
So true. I often think that that's one of the most important points of traveling is to discover that we are all exactly the same. It's, you know, one of the reasons I think if everyone travelled more widely and thoughtfully, you know, we could solve a lot of the world's issues. But, yeah.
I love that about travel. Like, I love going hiking or sitting around a fire. And the reason I love both of those things, even here in Australia, is when you get away from technology, you actually sit down and you start having some of these conversations.
Yeah.
And I can't say I've solved all the world's problems, but it's so refreshing to have conversations where you're actively trying to come up with ideas. And often they'll go nowhere, but at least you feel like you've been proactive in discussing it rather than just being down on the fact that everything sucks in the world right now.
Absolutely. And occasionally you'll hit on an amazing idea and you really will change the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's always worth having a go. So what do you think really is the crux of travel being able to kind of propel your self-development? Is it just that we are out of our normal zone and we have that time to think, or is it, you know, the experiences we have, or what causes us to really kind of have these, you know, like even personality shifts or changes in our values and stuff?
I think it's because we're out of our comfort zone. For me, you can't develop if you stay inside of your comfort zone. So just being somewhere different puts us a little bit out of our comfort zone. And the more and more you step, or the further and further you step away from what's comfortable, the more you'll actually grow and the more you'll learn about yourself and about the world.
I think Nate really hits the nail on the head with that whole leaving the comfort zone thing. I think that is by far the most essential ingredient of travel in helping us with our personal development. And, you know, moving outside or stretching that comfort zone can be hard sometimes, but it's pretty much always worth it. So, yeah, it's a good reminder. So Thank you very much for listening to episode 182 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. I bet you have your own tales of personal development from travel. And if you do, come and share them in the Facebook group for Thoughtful Travelers. So just search for Thoughtful Travelers in Facebook, or there'll be a link in the show notes as well. Or you might already be a member. We've got nearly 900 awesome people in there now. It's such a lovely place. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversations in there lately. So thanks everyone. Thank you also to my great guests. So in today's episode, I chatted with Kiki Wong from Nylon Pink. So you can find her at nylonpink.tv. I then chatted with Nicci O'Mara from Trip Chiefs. And so you can find Nicci's work at tripchiefs.com. Some great family travel stuff there. And last but far from least, I chatted with Nate Taiaroa from Adventure Out Loud. So you can find more about his experiences and trips at adventureoutloud.me. And all of this info and more will be in the show notes for this episode. The show notes are at notaballerina.com/182. So stay safe and stay happy, and thank you very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.